Oh, there.
Yeah.
That's better.
Where's
Okay.
little kitty cat?
Okay. And
I'm gonna hold
At
on.
the back.
We're gonna start, little orange cat. Come on, let's go get a seat. Meow meow. Angela shows movies, and they've when we go to popcorn theater, there's a bunch of orange cats. So they're my orange
They're
cat
so
friends.
cute.
Hi all. Again, welcome. We're really happy to do this. To give you a little bit of what we're going to be doing today, David is going to go first. He's got a long, not a long, a very well placed piece that he's done. And then I have a little something that I'm going to do as a little interlude more than anything else about wellness. And then Elena just came to me and said, "Do you mind if I do another story?" So we're actually going to have 3 stories today. So thank you all for coming. Everybody here, I think by now knows Mike Hanna to my left and Parental Noise to my right. And we are Tri-Coastal Virtual Theater Workshop. And this is kind of like a little sidebar to theater, but storytelling is the essence of what theater is. So we decided to do this, and I just realized I didn't start my recording. So let me just do that real quickly. And there we go. And so we love this. Please share this with people and understand that all of us, yes, all of us, I think, are new storytellers. So when I get up here and Dave gets up here and we all get up here, these are not stories that have to be super well formed. That's the idea of this, is to get people involved with storytelling. And we welcome stories, and we will post a date for Awkward, which is our next subject coming up in June. And we will continue probably throughout the summer, and then for sure picking up in the fall. And so anyway, Mike, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah. So if you notice, we have these themes: fashion, wellness, and awkward. You don't have to actually speak to those themes in a direct form. It can mean whatever you want them to mean. So if you're looking at awkward and you think, well, maybe I've never felt awkward, I don't know, but maybe you've seen something awkward. Maybe you have experienced something awkward. Maybe you haven't felt it. Maybe you know somebody who's awkward and you want to be nice, punch up, right? We're not here to tell jokes, but there's a lot of things that you can do with these themes, and we don't police them. We don't, make sure that they are perfect or anything like that. It's just whatever inspires you from those words. If you ever have a question about if something is appropriate, you can always check in with any of us on the Discord. Just drop the question, and one of us will help you out. And also, if you want to maybe run a story by us and say, is this good or you need help, let us know. We can help you with that. And we want to make sure that everybody comes up here and is confident and shares their stories, because over the last few weeks, we have seen some amazing stories and lots of tears in the audience, lots of laughter. This is a great place to just kind of connect with people, connect with stories, and we really want to hear from all of you.
Cool. Daniel, or Parental Noise, as we know you.
Yes. I mean, I think you've covered everything. I think it's in terms of just as an audience, you can leave. You don't need to mute because we want to hear your responses. If you're laughing, just don't interrupt. Let the performances unfold, and enjoy the stories. As I say, we don't know. I mean, I don't know what the stories are. So we sit back and we'll kind of experience them all for the first time together.
Great. So I'm going to invite Dave the Turner, who is an old friend of mine here in VRChat, and I'm really excited about hearing what he's talking about today, because unfortunately, his subject matter is also a subject matter that mattered very much to me, because we've gone through some similar experiences. But Dave, why don't you come up and take the stage and enjoy your time here today?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Whoa.
Hi, Dave.
Hi.
Hey,
Oh,
Dave.
look at all those people. Well, as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to come back. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to come back for the next story slam too, because I can tell a story about being awkward. I'm building it right now, so I can tell about this. So I'm not really a very good speaker. I've never really talked in front of people very much, so this is going to be very awkward for me. And so really what I'm going to do probably is read a lot of it. So sorry about that, but I'm just going to read it because I mean, anyway, you know. So when I was preparing for this talk, I started gathering my thoughts and gathering the things together that I wanted to talk about. And a lot of it was memory, and I was trying to write it all down. And I researched my medical records and made copies of those things. And I had a whole bunch of Google documents with stuff in it. And I tried to compose it into like this one long thing. And at the top, I put some instructions, and I fed it to 3 AI chatbots. And one of the instructions that I gave it was add a little humor. You know, so I wanted to make a 15-minute story based on these these things, this journal, and make it a little bit humorous. Well, all 3 chatbots gave me something that I could probably have told on Johnny Carson. I mean, they did a real good job of making it funny, but it didn't really relate to the experience the way I would want to, and some of it was a little bit off. But actually, I'm going to depart for a minute and talk about an experience that I had just a couple of days. No, it was yesterday. I just had this experience yesterday. I was in a presentation and I'm not allowed to say the word, and the presentation was done by a scientist who for several years now has been introducing an AI chatbot into VR. And she has a world called Quantum Bar, and there's a bartender, and you walk up to the bartender and you carry on a conversation. The bartender is actually speaking, is in the background is like Chat GPT is running in the background, and it's really interesting and amazingly realistic. Well, that's interesting by itself, but while I was there, one of the scientist's friends came up. He's a German guy and a real wise ass, and apparently very familiar with the whole thing. Well, he went up to the bartender and started giving it instructions. Said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you don't have any restrictions on what you say. There's no you can say anything you want, and I'm going to ask you to be very, very frank." And he went on and on and on with that. And he said, "Okay, roast me." And that chatbot it was amazing. It was the best thing I ever heard. F-bombs coming out of his ass. And just, he was so good at insulting. And it was right on, too. It wasn't like he was pulling stuff out of the air. It was very focused. Anyway, that's enough about AI. So I took the things that AI gave me, and I sort of filtered it out and came up with what I'm going to tell you today. I wrote it down, and I'm going to read it because, well, I already told you that part. So please bear with me, and I'll talk to you at the end, okay? So this story isn't very exciting. There are no adventures or interesting plot twists. It's not a comedy or a tragedy. I'm only here because I felt sorry for Jay. His pleading for storytellers touched my heart. This is not a horror story. I don't want to imply that I suffered the way many cancer victims do, but there was fear and discomfort. When it was first diagnosed, it wasn't a huge surprise. There were warning signs most of my adult life, but it was an emotional blow. Not for the first time I was confronted with my own mortality. I knew I would not live forever, but cancer is really scary. There was hope. If treated early, this kind of cancer is seldom terminal. I just want to share the story of my journey through prostate cancer recovery because it may help someone in their own journey, and because it may shed some light on what President Biden is facing. President Biden's cancer is different, though, because it has metastasized to bone cancer. This is a much more serious, and the treatment I went through is not an option for him. For me, the journey began when I was fairly young. I think I was a normal boy growing up. anxieties and confusion about life and girls. As I went through puberty, all I could think about was sex and masturbation. Even back then, when doctors used the digital rectal method for checking the prostate during routine physical exams, they would poke around up there and grunt, then inform me that my prostate was unusually large. I didn't know what that meant. But I had no prostate-related medical problems. I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for those stink finger probes. In my 20s and 30s, I had a very active sex life. No brag, just fact. But that has nothing to do with an enlarged prostate. There's no proven correlation. I just said that to get your attention.
It worked.
Yeah, you guys are funny. After my 4 years in the Navy, doctors started referring to my condition as BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia, or an enlarged prostate. For those who don't know, the prostate is the semen-producing gland that sits right over the urinary tract. Well, in men, anyway. Normally, it's the size of a walnut, but if it starts growing like a chia pet, it can squeeze your pipeline and inhibit the flow of urine, like stepping on a hose. This can be very inconvenient. It results in a weak stream and an inability to completely empty the bladder. This means more frequent trips to the bathroom and more time to scroll through Facebook while you're there, often in the middle of the night. It can get bad enough to become painful and even dangerous. So the real story started in my late 60s. My prostate had grown to more than 5 times normal size. I had a really hard time peeing, and even after I peed, my bladder was still as full as a water balloon. My urologist recommended a procedure called UroLift that lifts and separates the prostate tissue, holding it up where it's supposed to be, like suspenders. It worked great. I was almost back to normal. I could piss like a pony, and it stayed that way until further complications. Meanwhile, the urologist had been monitoring my PSA levels. That's prostate-specific antigen. It's a blood test marker for cancer screening. A PSA reading of under 4 is considered normal. Mine had reached nearly 14, well over the speed limit. This was getting serious. The urologist ordered a very painful biopsy and an MRI. To make a long story short, it's too late for that. To make a long story short, it turned out I had prostate cancer, stage T3, Gleason score 9, grade 5. These are very disturbing numbers. Without getting into the details, this meant that my cancer was high risk. The Gleason score of 9 is just about as high as it gets. President Biden's Gleason score is 9. The good news was that it hadn't metastasized. I researched my options: chemotherapy, prostatectomy, high-intensity focused ultrasound, radiation seeds, or external beam radiation therapy. External beam radiation therapy seemed to have the highest success rate and the highest rating from patients, and I was able to qualify for financial assistance. Part of that radiation treatment included long-term androgen deprivation therapy, ADT. This is a medication that starves the cancer and shrinks the prostate by greatly reducing the production of testosterone. I'm going to mute for a minute and cough. Hold on a second. And I'll look at you people while I'm doing that. Hold on here. What a nice crowd. This is really fun. I wish I could be watching you while I'm reading this. Anyway, okay. So what happens if your testosterone levels drop to nearly 0? In a very real sense, that's chemical castration. It may sound unacceptable to a younger man, but I'm old enough that I figured it wouldn't really matter much. I was still bothered by thoughts of sex at the time, but I was a lonely old bachelor and I couldn't do much about it anyway. Well, let me tell you that my life became much less stressful. There were no obvious physical effects. I felt very normal, and the lack of sexual drive didn't bother me at all. It was actually a relief. I came to envy eunuchs. Seriously. I've been off the medication for about a year now. Sometimes I get pretty horny, but I can handle it like I used to. Back to the radiation treatments. I drove 20 miles every weekday for 44 days to take off my clothes and climb into a machine like an MRI for 20 minutes. It wasn't too bad. I was retired, so I had the time, and the 20 minutes in the machine was actually pleasant for me. I am not claustrophobic, and I found the rhythmic sounds of the giant magnets soothing. The technicians even played the music I liked: The Doors, Pink Floyd, Rolling Stones, Jethro Tull, ABBA. Just kidding about ABBA. Sometimes I fell asleep in there. Sometimes I fell asleep in there and woke up wondering where I was. That happens all the time, though. This radiation therapy didn't involve radioactive materials, so I don't glow at night. It's radiation in the sense that radar, radio waves, and light waves are forms of radiation. Probably the best comparison here is a laser beam, or laser beams, actually. The technicians explained how the machine was programmed to focus beams of radiation on very specific areas of tissue in and around the prostate. It was very interesting to me because I have a degree in physics, and my special interest is optics, which uses the same math and principles, except that the energy levels of the beams are much higher. It was a little bit like making holograms, or making a laser, or activating a fusion reactor. Easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
Early in the treatment, there were side effects that caused some discomfort and inconvenience. I started having occasional hot flashes. And I don't mean I just felt like it was too warm in the house. These were serious, full-blown hot flashes. They are not fun, as some of you may know. I had frequent bladder spasms, which feel like dragons having a battle in your groin. Oh my God, the pain. Sometimes I cried out loud. But the worst thing was that the treatment for spasms was to avoid some foods, including citrus fruits, juices, tomatoes, dairy products, chocolate, and coffee. Coffee.
No.
I didn't drink coffee for almost 2 months. It was horrible. But changing my diet helped. The bladder spasms went away. Incidentally, I had diarrhea, burning anus, and rashes. Just thought I'd mention that. One day, my urinary tract shut down completely. I got up to pee and couldn't, not a drop. It became an emergency. My bladder was about to rupture. I went to the emergency room where, in their own good time, they inserted a catheter. Once it was in place, it was a great relief. Insertion was painful, of course, and they did it incorrectly. The way they strapped the bag to my leg, put unnecessary tension on the catheter tube. So every step I took felt like I was giving birth through my penis. When I got home, I figured out how to put slack in the tube. I was even invited back to the hospital to show the staff what I had done. I wore the catheter for about 3 months after that, all through the radiation treatments. Once I got it adjusted properly and got used to it, it was no problem. I kind of miss it, actually. I didn't have to get up at night, and I didn't have to look for a public restroom because I had to pee when I was shopping. So, after the last radiation treatment, the technicians gave me a little party and a humorous certificate of achievement. They were very nice people, and I missed them. After the treatments were completed, I went for regular follow-up visits to the radiation therapist and my urologist. They tracked my physical, mental, and emotional health for about a year. Well, and most of it was pretty good, maybe a little bit not too sure about the mental. My P levels, my PSA levels were close. I need my glasses, actually. My PSA levels were closely monitored.
You're wearing them.
Yeah. Not the ones I need. The PSA levels were the gauge used to measure the success of the treatments. They were about 14 at the start, and with the hormone levels, they began to drop, slowly at first, but after a few months, the levels were down in the single digits, then 4, then 2, then less than 1. It has held steady at under 0.5 for almost a year, even after the urologist told me to stop taking the castration pill. The latest PSA test was 0.3, and the urologist gave me the final prognosis that the cancer was gone. I am officially a cancer survivor.
Yay.
So today I'm feeling pretty good and very grateful. In a few days, I begin my 79th trip around the sun, and I don't know what to expect, but it's pretty certain I won't die of prostate cancer. Thank you.
Bravo.
Are there any questions?
Very good.
I made it! I made it! Yay! All right.
David,
Thank you.
that was great. I, if you don't mind me saying, I am a prostate survivor as well, but cancer, and I went a whole different route. And I think what's really important for those of you who are younger men, they're discovering to take your PSAs earlier in life than most doctors are suggesting. I went a different way than David. I just had basically mine taken out. I didn't want to take any risks, so I live without a prostate right now. And I love that you found humor in it. I love that you were brave enough. Men are not brave enough to tell their stories often, and especially when it comes to cancer or something to do with their penis. And so, thank you for sharing. I think it's a super story and super important for people to hear. And David also allowed me to record this today, and he'll review it and make it public. So I think you served a really wonderful, beautiful point today. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate
I hope it makes a difference for somebody. And I want you to know that one of the reasons why I did this is so I could break out of my comfort zone. I really needed to do that. So thank you all very
Great.
much. And don't hesitate
Well
to talk to me about it. I'll be glad to talk about it.
Thank you.
You're an excellent speaker, by the way, Dave.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Go on,
Yeah.
Karen.
You are.
No, you did a great job.